Next on Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly, Utah Warriors head coach Greg Cooper, Wendy Young with all things W.E.R., Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, and Rugby's Best Dang Recap. Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle.
There is a massive responsibility on the 23 that are privileged enough to step out on that field today.
Let's get it started with Rugby's Best Recap. In Chi-Town, the Hounds and Old Glory stood nose to nose in a cut-from-steel Eastern Conference quarterfinal. Chicago allowed D.C. to dominate in yards rushing and over 60% in possession and territory. But the rope-a-dope worked as the Hounds allowed D.C. to score only one try while carving out three of their own and pulling away in the second half to earn their trip to the Eastern Conference Championship. Final score, 27-16 Chicago. In Utah, it was the Jordan Trainer and Joel Hodgson show for the first 35 minutes as the hosts sprinted to a 17-0 lead. But the Seattle Seawolves have champions' DNA in their makeup and would not go quietly into the night. A penalty try by the Seawolves and 2 yellow cards by the Warriors let Seattle sneak back into it, but Utah held on in a thriller, 23-21, and will play in the Western Conference Final. Up in Quincy, Massachusetts, New England hosted Miami in an Eastern Conference quarterfinal, and it took less than a minute for Paolo Balacana to score for the Free Jacks as they put on a clinical and relentless demonstration against a game but under the water Sharks side. Dan Hollingshead filled in nicely for Jason Patros, even adding a drop goal as New England cruised to the Eastern Conference Championship for the third year in a row, 32-10. In Houston, it was an old-school rain-soaked grass and muddy field for the thoroughly entertaining quarterfinal match between Houston and L.A. And when Reese McDonald and Andrew Coe can't turn it outside because of soggy footing, it makes for a mano-a-mano north-south match. The SaberCats, with number 7, Johan Momsen making 25 tackles, and Peter Aniasu adding 2 tries and 16 tackles, did just enough versus a never-quit L.A. side, holding on for a trip to Utah for the Western Conference decider. Final score, 27-21 Cats. And after that, we could use a break. And normally we have Rugby Morning's coffee break with John Fitzpatrick, but he and his little kids and his wife are flying across the country or driving across the country because they're moving. And what better excuse to have Wendy Young of your Scrumhalf Connection in the legend that is Wendy Young. Wendy, welcome to MLR Weekly.
So excited to be here. Can't believe it's the end of the season for the MLR and for W.E.R. Really excited to talk about the championship, the Legacy Cup.
Wendy, I know that you're working with the MLR all the time and you know, you're busy, but we're not talking about the MLR here. We're talking about the W.E.R., the Women's Elite Rugby, Rugby Evolved, and the drama and the excitement leading up to this first ever Legacy Cup.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. You know, I think when we started the season, we had 6 teams, 13 weeks of action. It's the first women's professional league, and it's just really exciting. And Denver Onyx came out. They were so strong. Of course, they're previous winners the last 2 years in the WPL, the Women's Premier League, which has now been renamed, refactors and such. But they came out so strong. They were just wiping the floor with everybody. We all kind of went, okay, Denver's going to be in the final, you know, and what are we going to see after that? And kind of was looking like it was going to be Boston all the way. That Boston, the Banshees, stumbled in the middle of the season. New York got a magic win over Denver. We always have to caveat it a little bit, though, because the Eagles from Denver were away at camp. So there is that little caveat.
Wendy. Boo-hoo.
Hey, I get bad emails if I don't say that, right?
Oh, I'll take the emails. They got their asses kicked by New York. That's what I'm going.
It was great, right? It was a really exciting match, and it was really close. And I think they found some weaknesses of Denver also that other teams, I think, didn't really discover. And the other piece about New York is they've always done this. They've always been kind of a team that was content to just grow as the season went on, right? They're okay to lose a couple of games in the beginning, learn what players need to start, where they need to be, and then coast into the end of the season. And I think, Diego, their coach, has done a great job. They've figured out who their starters are and who their stars are. And we're going to see a really cool final June 29th at TCO Stadium. It's going to be awesome.
So I've got a soft spot in my heart, admittedly, for Denver because Rachel Ericke and Carly Waters have been on this show. And it's countered, though, by what I consider a family from the New York Rugby Club is Misha Green Yachts. So I'm a little bit torn, but I'm a New Yorker. But, they were missing the Eagles, the Onyx, during that period. So what is your take on how they match up?
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting. New York, like I said, they kind of faltered. They lost a couple of their first games, and then now they've been on a streak of 5 out of 6 to secure the second playoff spot. They've consistently been getting those bonus points. So where they were struggling to score in the beginning, now they've got it down. They've found their, like you said, Misha Green Yachts, and then I would say Kayla Hunkin-Clark, also very strong for them. And several of their other players, Jetta Owens, really strong coming on in the season. And I think they've really just gelled, right? Where they have a really strong bench, and not to discount Denver's bench, they can just put more Eagles on the field, right? So it's almost unfair. Yeah. But I think that New York has kind of seen it as let's just take Denver down. And that was the goal. And they've done it once. So they know they can do it again.
Who's going to win the first ever Legacy Cup?
It's been a while since New York's won. The last time they won was in 2017. But I really kind of feel like it's New York's year. I called really early on in the season and was frankly made fun of. I think week 3, I said, New York's going to be there. It's going to happen. So I'm going to stick with my choice, even though I did pick Denver based on their colors early on. But I'm going to go with my son, Cole, who loves the Exiles. I think we're going to stick with the Exiles and see how it goes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to argue with you on that because I'm a New Yorker. But I'm looking forward to this match, and maybe we'll get you to check in with us again with an update next week.
Yeah, I would love to. Just really get your tickets. They're selling fast. So June 29th, 2 p.m., TCO Stadium. See you there.
And Wendy, one day, I think we're all going to get together on the same rugby page, and maybe this is a dual weekend with the MLR final.
I know, right? We looked at tickets. Bree and I will be the announcers for the final, and we looked at tickets to see if we could try to go to the MLR Championship, of course, the day before, and get to all the places. And it's a little too difficult, but I would love for it to be doubleheader, double weekend, whatever it is, same
Absolutely.
City. But yeah, this is professional rugby. Let's do it all together, right? It's amazing. Weekend. It could be amazing.
All right, we're going to make that happen, the two of us.
Let's do it.
People call each other's people. On that note, Wendy Young of your Scrumhalf Connection, thank you very much.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
How you doing? I'm Jim Hamilton. I'm at the Pig and Whistle. I'm at the famous Pig and Whistle. Look, I've got my rucksack on. I'm a well-known man around the world as one of the best rugby players to have ever played the game. No, I'm not. It's a lie. But we've got Paul O'Connell's montage on the wall. I've heard a lot about this place, and I'm here. Make sure, though, that you come here, but you also tune in to Rugby Wrap-Up.
And we are back with the head coach of the Utah Warriors, Greg Cooper. Greg, welcome back to MLR Weekly.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to be here.
But first off, congratulations on an excellent season. And my intel tells me that it's the first postseason win for the Utah Warriors in their history. So congratulations.
Look, man, it's a really good feeling. We've got a great fan base here. The fan base is phenomenal. It was the occasion the other day was a tremendous occasion. Seattle's always. They're a great team. They fought hard. They fought right to the end. And
you let them back in the match.
Yeah, and it's been a little bit of the story this year. We let them in.
Exciting.
I think that penalty try / sin bin really gave them that momentum. I won't go into that one. I definitely think that was.
I think you just did, Coach.
I think that was an interesting decision.
Yeah, well, you made it exciting. You held on, and it's got to be really gratifying to shut up or prove wrong us pundits that had you as fourth best in the jam-packed Wild West. And here you are, you win the division, you beat the best teams. That's got to be pretty gratifying.
Yeah, but look, Matt, we didn't deserve to be any higher than fourth. I mean, you're probably possibly generous on what happened last year. We didn't go well, and I think when you don't go well, you've got two ways of looking at it. You be honest, you dig deep, you find solutions, and you try and do better, and that's what we did. So, look, I think you probably were on a long list of a long line, there who were picking us to not do so well, and we didn't have the wins on the board to justify anything else.
Well, you had a big turnover, and that was another thing. But it wasn't as though other teams didn't have that big turnover. It just seemed like you guys did it all at once, so it sent up some red flags. But obviously, it paid off.
Well, I think the big thing is we focused on what we needed, and you can have turnover. You got to know what you want, and what we wanted was hard workers. Obviously, talent's important, but we needed good people who would buy into what we were trying to achieve, and good people who would actually connect with others. So the big word going around here, and I think it's a good word, well, the boys are connected. The organisation's connected. And you can see the fight. Yeah, we might let teams back in. We've done that a number of times, but we haven't gone away. We've stayed connected.
Well, those off-season videos that we saw with you guys hiking up in the snow-capped mountains with backpacks, and you said you had like 20-pound plates in those backpacks or something like that, that seems to have stayed throughout the culture of togetherness throughout this entire campaign. Is that the key component to your team's success? Is it cohesiveness or sticking to the game plan or towing the company line? What's
a big part of the glue, I will say that, because, you can have great strategy, you can have great pre-season, you can do all that sort of thing, but the glue has actually been that hard work. But you can't have hard work unless certain people will work hard and certain people won't work hard. We made sure we had people who would work hard. And they've come here, they've arrived here. And I'm not just saying the people that have come here. We've obviously got a base of local boys who work very, very hard as well. I mean, I look at a guy like Bailey Wilson. Bailey's had a superb season, really. Yeah. And Bailey's been around a long time. He's playing the best rugby I've seen Bailey play. Then you've got other guys like Tonga, kind of Coffey, Kalisi Molly, new to the organisation and putting their hands up. So,
bring them young guys?
Yeah. So we've got Cole Semu as well.
Right.
Cole's played 10 games. Now, he's our draft player. Now, we had injuries to Kyle Brown, to Gabe Casey, to Spencer Jones, to Blake Makari. Those are all guys who play in the midfield. So we've been hit pretty hard this year in that midfield. And so Cole ended up playing 10 games, and we didn't expect that to happen. Excellent.
So do you have certain clubhouse leaders or certain guys that stand out in the clubhouse, and how do you communicate or utilize them?
Yeah, well, we've actually got two groups. We've got our playing leadership group, and that playing leadership group is led by Gavin Thornbury. Then we have our vice captains, Aki, we have Dylan, and we also have Jordan. So, those are our four actual game leaders. But then we have what we call a builders board, and the builders board is they are the ones who look after, for example, Dylan Nell looks after the international, checks on them, sees how they're going. Kalisi Molly looks after the young boys, see how they're going. Is there any issues, anything we can help with? Sire Huela, he looks after the social side of it and making sure they're all connected.
That's the guy I want to talk to.
Yeah, well, Paulie Lasike looks after helps the partners, make sure they're doing okay. Angus McClellan looks after the American, So we meet as a board, we call it a builders board, Utah Built, and we check and say, hey, look, is everyone going okay? Does I need to help out? Does Kimball need to help out? Do we need to help out? So we've got our playing leadership, and we've also got our off-the-field leadership as well.
You've been around the block, and I'm going to compare Utah to the rest of your jobs because – in the United States, we have 1,000 different temperatures. The weather is different all over the place, time zones. But in Utah, you have snow, you have heat, you have humidity, you have the cold, you have everything. You've coached in France, you've coached in New Zealand, you've coached in Japan, you've also coached in Siberia.
I've coached a game in Siberia. Stade Francais, we played Krasniak, Siberian team, and that was a real experience. Actually, we were able to play there because it was the early part of the winter, which is not even really winter. So we got a game there. After a certain time, you can't play in Siberia for obvious reasons. So the game started without snow, game finished with snow. So really interesting.
Kind of like Utah.
Yeah, a bit like that. But really interesting place. And look, man, if I look back on my career, I'm so fortunate. I love my time here. Everywhere I go, there's always. It's actually nice to go and live in a place, because when you travel as a coach, sure, you fly in on a Friday. You fly into, say, Houston on a Friday. You land at the airport. You go to the hotel. You'll have a walk around before a game. You play the game, you fly out again. But when you live somewhere as a coach, it's really neat. And I love my experience here.
Yeah, and you've had some great experiences worldwide as well.
I have, even playing. I played in England for a season. I played in Italy for 2 seasons.
You played for that team called the All Blacks?
Yeah. No, had some moments there, and some good ones and not so good ones.
It's all right. Hey, we only remember the good ones. The older we get, the better we were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm getting old, so I'm getting a lot better now. I'm getting a lot better.
Get in line, pal. Get in line. Yeah. All right. So how would you describe the team's style of play? Because you can score with the best of them, and yet you have 3 of the leading tacklers in the league, or guys that just love to tackle, in Lahore and Nell and Lance Williams, and the list goes on and on. So how does that happen?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good balance. When you've got a forward pack like we have, our scrums are, a very good scrum, our lineouts are good lineout, our mauls are strong maul, and we've got kicking game as well. So, we've got the workers that go with the kicking game. So I think our game's pretty balanced. I will say that. At times we've probably turned over too much ball, which have led to giving the ball to teams like LA. You give the ball to LA, you've just now got to tackle, because they play a very exciting ball in hand game. So certain teams have put us under pressure. If we've bent, we've scrambled, we've worked really hard, and I think that's another reflection of the boys being united. Our line, James Lynch, our defence coach, has done a great job, and we want to protect our line. So, but we have, we haven't played that 80-minute game yet. I think we've probably played 60 at times. We haven't quite played 80. It'd be nice if we can do that this week.
All right, final question. Super Rugby final. Crusaders or Chiefs?
My brother's a big Chiefs man, and he'll be watching this, so I'm going Crusaders. I'll go Crusaders at home.
I'm going Crusaders.
What a fairy tale story for Rob Penny. Didn't go well last year. What a fairy tale story. But look, it's a great final. Chiefs clearly can win it, but I'm going Crusaders.
And I like the way every time they cut away to Rob Penny, he's sitting there in a suit and he's kind of by himself.
Yeah. Well, it's a great moment for him, though. It didn't go well, and everyone called for his head. And I know Rob pretty well. I coached against him in Japan, and it's a great story. But look, 2 good teams. Clayton McMillan's done a fantastic job for the Chiefs. So I don't know. I'll go with Crusaders.
All right. On that note, thank you, sir, and the best of luck in the upcoming matches.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Notice I said matches.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, Greg Cooper of the Utah Warriors, thank you for coming on MLR Weekly. We'll be right back with Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News after this. And now, the Major League Rugby Play of the Week, brought to you by the Rugby Network. In the 38th minute of their quarterfinal versus Houston, LA's Gonzalo Bertrano produced a perfectly executed downfield kick to Reese McDonald, who navigated his course magnificently for what would have been an exceptional play on a dry surface, let alone a rain-soaked, muddy grass field. And that is your Major League Rugby Play of the Week, brought to you by the Rugby Network.
I wouldn't like to be at the bottom of that.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. Here's your TRO, the Rugby Odds MLR Picks of the Week via WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, legendary USA Olympic Sevens coach Mike Friday, and King Gipte Belu, inventor of words.
I think Chicago's more primed after last year to be able to do it. I look for Chicago to cover on this one.
I'm going Utah, and Utah to cover as well. Utah to beat Houston.
And hey, be sure to check out the Rugby Odds, the critically acclaimed sports entertainment show featuring big-name talent, exclusive highlights, insightful opinions, and irreverent, if not downright naughty, behavior. And we're back with Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News / Ray's Rugby. Bryan, welcome back. And I guess you're in Chicago with your New England hat. Predicting if you did or not, I don't know, but you got it right because Chicago is going to New England to play in that semifinal in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, that's right. It was an eventful, long weekend, I guess you would have to say. Jeez, it seemed like we might never get to that last game, but we did, and almost got them all right. The weather gods kind of scuppered that LA prediction for us, but overall, I think a pretty satisfactory set of quarterfinals, if you'd like to call them that.
Takeaway from the weekend, Bryan.
Well, I mean, I think we look at the action. Certainly, that DC game, they started out well against the Hounds, but I just thought it was inevitable that they were going to wear down. And you saw it right around the 55-minute mark. They were just starting to get a bit tired. They had to make so many tackles against that physical, Chicago pack, and then. They look up, they've done all that hard work, and Luke White and Matt McCarthy comes off the bench, and you're just like, seriously? Come on. So I just thought it was inevitable that they were going to wear down. That kind of went the way I thought it was going to. DC, I thought their attack just ran a bit too laterally. They didn't have anybody punching up the middle and really straighten it up, and they just ran out of space. There was no space for guys like Hoyland out wide to really take advantage of. So I thought Chicago's defense was outstanding in that game and got that win. Utah, Seattle, wow, what a wild game that was. At halftime, it sure didn't look like Seattle was going to be having any say whatsoever. So again, kudos to them. They're just the second half team all year, but in the end, Utah just a little bit better, and I think most people expected. I think we probably expected Utah to win that by a little bit more than they did. So, it was a battle. I think the absence of Gavin Thornbury certainly hurt Utah up front, but I guess we'll see how that goes in the next one. New England, Miami went pretty much the way I thought. Miami, just for whatever reason, just doesn't travel well to Boston. They did finally get a try there, but just a class performance, I thought, from the Free Jacks. And then, the grand finale again. I think the weather just didn't play into LA's. They couldn't have asked for any worse weather. On we go. Big weekend ahead.
All right, and let's test your skills on predicting the future. In our semifinal matches, New England at home -5 versus Chicago. I know that you're torn because Lucas Rumble is behind you.
Great Canadian players on both sides and all critical to the success. We know how Chicago's going to play this. They just don't, and especially seeing, it was a shame to see Peyton Wall go down. I don't know if he's going to be fit in time. He's got, looks like some kind of a calf or something injury, lower leg anyways. So if he's not fit, who do they bring in? Augsburger, is he ready? Is Dominguez 100%? I don't know.
Those are two good names.
They're both, all three of those guys are pretty much, the danger man. But the thing is, I don't think anybody else in that back line really threatens New England. Devoto's the key, the playmaker at 12, but Milan is just as good. And if they close down the space and take away his time to make decisions, then I think that really limits it. And I think Chicago will be aware of that. Their focus is going to be the set piece. I mean, if Chicago wins this, it's going to be Butchie scoring, a hat trick kind of thing. I just think that New England's backline offers Balakala and Webster are on fire right now, and whether it's Toliafoa or Reeves they've got in the other wing, those guys are deadly. Lesage is starting to hit some form as well.
Yeah, but what about the Q Train versus the Butcher? I mean, that's the story.
That'll be absolute fire.
Quatrin and Fawcett.
That video of Q in the locker room for New England after the game. Yeah, that's going to be fun up front. And both, they both play kind of similar defensive styles. Chicago really wants to get, our man Rumble here a shot at the breakdown, hold guys up, slow them up a little, and then give Rumble time to get there. But New England, it's the same thing, suffocating defense, but they're more aggressive at the breakdown, that whole back row. So for my money, these are the two best back rows in the competition.
Well, Utah could raise a hand there too.
I don't think they're quite there.
They got three of the league's top tacklers.
Yeah, but it takes more than tackling to make the very top. I just think
Whatever.
that these two are a step above. So this is going to be a cracking game. I expect it to be absolutely close. I've got to give it to the Free Jacks simply because I think they have more ways to win, and I think their back line offers a bigger threat.
All right. Okay. Well, Utah at home, -4 versus Houston. Houston likely without some key playmakers in Drew Wild and Davey Kotza, and their lineout struggles, whereas Utah has been very good in scrums and lineouts.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say that, and actually Houston's lineout did pretty well against LA. It was LA's lineout that really
LA was stuck in the mud.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I think if Houston gets their set piece right, they can absolutely compete. Remember, Houston really did a job on Utah in both of those games when they played. However, with the caveat, they do not have Davey Kutzer. They do not have Drew Wild. I don't have any intel that says either of those guys will be playing in this match. So we just got to figure that they're not, and that's just such a massive blow. They're not going to be playing on rain, soggy, grass on this one. This is going to be a much faster pitch. I'm just trying to find if I can think of any ways that I can see Houston winning this against that a very solid Utah team, even though they didn't look super great against Seattle. It has to be said. I just think Utah has more ways to win this. I thought Dylan Nelstad defensively as a tackler, I got to give that back row credit. You're right, defensively they are. And so, yeah, I just think that Utah has a little bit more. If Kutz are there and Wild is there, this is a different story. But I just don't see Houston having enough, and they won't have the weather gods to depend on in the altitude at Salt Lake.
These stats were courtesy of the Rugby Odds, and you can see my picks on the Rugby Odds. It's a good show. Watch it. But, Brian, final thought, who is going to hoist the shield?
Well, I guess at this stage, I'm picking New England and Utah to be there, and it's basically a home final in that case if New England gets there. So I think it would be folly of me to pick anybody but the Free Jacks, the two-time winners, and loaded with all my good Canadian boys. So, I'll go with New England to win in a thriller.
Folly of Bryan Ray. Thank you, Brian, and we are unfortunately out of time to let you counter that. On that note, thanks to Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Thanks to Greg Cooper of the Utah Warriors. Thanks to Wendy. I gotta go sit in the car.